Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Willow, and welcome back to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance Forever for a tip-top high-level 4v4 team matchmaker game played on the map of Vimire. Let's go ahead and get into introducing our teams with Team 1 on the left-hand side and Team 2 on the right-hand side, starting in the far north with the Cyan Aeon best color, best faction, going by the name of Balanced Slave Noob. Then we can move our way down south to the purple UEF, going first land, and his name is Snowy801. Then further south, we have ourselves the second island for Team 1, a blue UEF, going first land, and his name is Balanced Slave. Then, last but not least, we have ourselves another blue UEF going first land, and his name is Clover Commander. And with all of the beautiful folks over at Team 1 introduced, let's move on to the glorious Team 2 with the red Cybran going first land by the name of Vladislav. And he's walking his commander over to the north as we have ourselves a maroon Aeon best faction going first land, and his name is Yellow Noob. Then we can move on to the southern team, starting with, or the southern side of the team, I should say, starting with the orange Aeon best faction going first land, and his name is Janus Prime. Then last but not least for the entire game, a yellow Seraphim going first land. His name is Dremokus, and he is enjoying this position here. And we can zoom out, take a look at the map, quickly becoming one of my new favorite maps since it was added to the map pool. About 12,000 reclaim in total, I believe, when this map is completely unreclaimed. And of course, we have all of these islands. So it's kind of similar to Seraphim Glaciers, but not quite. In Seraphim Glaciers, you have this kind of central island as well, and it also has a lot of mexes. But the side islands have 4 mexes each, and generally they're going to go to one team or the other. This island and this island generally go to the blue team, whereas this island and this island generally go to the red team. And that's kind of how it's going to shape up here. The big positions to look at are right here with purple and orange. Each of them respectively get an island that is very easy to defend, which is an extra 4 mexes. And also the middle of the map can be very important, 8 mexes if you can get a stronghold on it. But of course, Navy can very easily plow through any kind of defense you try to build here, so it is a little bit of a balancing act. And of course, these players, with how many of them are super high rated pros, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this map and how they approach the game in general. As, of course, the standout members in this game are going to be Yellow Noob and Balanced Slave, along with Balanced Slave Noob, as they are all over 2,000 rating. We have some players who are a little bit lower on rating, such as Vladislav, sitting down at around 1,000 rating points. And, of course, we have Commander Clover, who may not be, or may not be a good or bad player, could be a low-rated player, could be a high-rated player. They haven't played TMM yet, so we don't quite know. I'm assuming that if they've played any of the other game modes that they will be around 1,000 rating. There is a soft rating underneath this with your global rating in the TMMs. So maybe there's something to do with that. As we have our first little bit of drop action coming out from Yellow Noob, dropping off an engineer, going to be trying to get the reclaim onto that their little thing, that destroyer there, Cybran. Oh no, that's a governor. Oh, you can see the little missile racks there in the back. That's a governor wreck, and of course he's also dropping all of the wrecks over here, going to be doing very well for himself, and trying to just steal away as much of the reclaim as possible. Unfortunately for him, though, it seems that the reclaim over here to the north of his transport currently is going to be very unlikely to go his way, as of course there is a comm, and he sees that, redirects immediately in attempts to just sort of chill here and maybe not have an issue. Maybe Balanced Slave can check onto that engineer just a bit in time. Nope, not going to be able to get anything out of that. Is Yellow Noob, but of course his transports will still be very useful, and he'll have a great time. He did put a flare onto that transport just so he can shoot down any enemy engineers, and he is going to manage to do that right now. Use that flare as a ghetto gunship. He is going to lose the ghetto gunship itself, unfortunately, to a few interceptors coming out from our favorite man, the myth, the legend, Snowy801. He's been in a couple of casts before. And, of course, we have a bit of a fun little situation appearing up here to the north. No naval structures yet, not even a factory out from either Yellow Noob or Vladislav, whereas multiple frigates now starting to come out of the two factories of Balanced Slave Noob, meaning that this northern island is already landlocked, and that could be a huge issue. We have Yellow Noob right now already going for T2 air. He could very easily get into that and start building torpedo bombers to just make sure he has access to the water. Does have a T1 bomber out right now as well. We have a bit of a contest going on for this island over here to the southern side of the map, and it is of course going to be Dremokus versus Clover Commander. Clover Commander trying to kill off this mechs, unable to do so. Did build a radar. That radar unfortunately most likely will go down to this bomber. And, of course, that means that this island very likely going to be going to the player Dremokus, and he will be very happy to have that extra mass income. Up here to the north, the opposite island, the island that should be a bit risky for Team 1, or for Team 2, I mean, or Red Team. Vladislav sent his comm here, so he's very easily going to be able to maintain control of this island by himself, and that should be good for his team, assuming that they don't just completely collapse in the Navy, as on this northern side, a huge naval presence coming out between Balanced Slave Noob and Snowy801, meaning that this island is on lock, and they're going to be able to stop Yellow Noob and Vladislav from getting into the naval game anytime soon. Down here to the south, we have a few naval units kicking around for both Janus Prime and now Dremokus for the other side of the map. And we have a very light amount of naval production now coming out for the southern island of Team 1. Up here to the north, a bit of a fight going on over here. Vladislav deciding to shoot at this frigate with the commander, is going to eventually be able to pick it off as long as the frigate doesn't get out of range, but the frigate very much so is going to try to. A beacon class almost managing to go down as well. I would guess that's also from Vladislav's comm. So interesting bit of trading going on here in the early game, and it seems that Vladislav's not going to be able to finish up his factories. Does finish up one of them, but that's just going to end up being a damage sink, at least for the time being. Gonna be about 1600 HP buffer, while Vladislav tries to build a torpedo launcher to defend his territory. I don't know how well that will work out for him, but is gonna send an engineer over to try and help out. Maybe should just throw a repair order onto the naval factory, at least for a moment, but instead just hard focusing onto that torpedo launcher, that scuttle. We have a bit of airplay now coming out from Snowy as he starts to take down this expansion in the middle set up by Yellow Noob. That's going to be a very big loss for the Maroon Aeon. Would very much so love to have control of this middle area. Also, fun fact, if you are playing this map yourself, the T2PD cannot shoot at even the artillery. They can if the artillery get too close, but in general, there is not enough vision here for them to be able to see the T1 mobile artillery, and of course that's going to lead to a situation where you see a couple of T1 artillery with 2 ranks of veterancy after killing off T2PD by themselves. Bit of an air fight going on there in the middle. The torpedo launcher did manage to kill off that beacon class, and now both of these factories are going to come online now for Vladislav. Does not mean that he will be able to stay in the Navy, of course, with T2 probably coming along very soon for one of these players. Could easily oust him from that position. Still, though, Yellow Noob, unable to get into the water himself, is already nearly at T3 air. It's going to be just a few more seconds before that upgrade finishes off, and then he is going to be primed in good position to get out an early strat bomber before I think anybody on the opposite team has a chance to do so themselves. We do have T2 just now finishing up for Balanced Slave, and he has managed to get up his T2 Pigeon, but unfortunately hasn't even started T3 air yet, and that's going to set him behind a little bit. as that just kind of means that Yellow Snoob going to be sitting up here very pretty. Already has his T3 Engineer out, building that T3 power immediately. And that T3 power is even going to be adjacent to a Mechs, which he could go ahead and start throwing to T3 very, very soon. And once this T3 Pigeon is done, we're almost assuredly going to be seeing a Strat Bomber. Yellow Noob saying no. And of course, our players just continuing to try and gain an advantage. I would say that Team 1 is doing very well, at least navally right now, as they have managed to really cause issues for this northern island. The southern side of the map also going very well for Team 2, though, as we do have an overall mechs count advantage, I believe, right now for Team 2, with their ability to grab that extra island. That will be changing soon, as Snowy 801 is going to claim sole proprietary... sole ownership. I can't use big words. I shouldn't have even tried. I am a little bit scatterbrained today. Sorry about that. As he's going to try and get himself sole ownership of this middle island, and it does seem that he's going to be relatively successful, at least in the short term. And that should help out Team 1 a little bit with making sure they don't fall behind economically. Overall, though, Team 2 ahead economically by about 30 mass a second, which is relatively significant. But they are behind in the Navy. They don't have nearly as many boats on the field. Gunships now out onto the field for Balance Slave, going to be using these Stingers to stop the expansion efforts of Drimicus over here on this southern island. And that will be unfortunate for the Yellow Seraphim, but you don't go into this game expecting to get this as this player. So very likely something that he was expecting to happen. He probably wasn't. He wasn't entertaining the idea of holding that island for the entire game, I'm sure. It's just too close to your opponent's main bases, and their production should be able to get over there and oust you. But he has managed to set up his own little bit of production down here to the south, and he does have a decent navy kicking about. As up here to the north, a bunch of submarines now being produced by Vladislav to try and shut down this early naval aggression coming out from Balance Slave Noob and Snowy. Snowy not even bothering with sending units up to try and shut that down anymore, just making sure that the main island doesn't have any good naval defense. And maybe trying to get up to T2 very early. He is indeed immediately going for a Governor instead of a Valiant. Nope, he already has a Valiant. I am wrong on every account. He has a Valiant, those double barrels of doom coming out at the T2 phase for the UEF. And over here to the north, we have our early Strat Bomber that I was talking about and hyping up so much, already up to 4 kills. And I think all of those are on to either T2 Mexes or maybe even some T2 power was taken down. And more kills are just going to continue to flow in, as now this strategic bomber is just going to be able to continue to drop bombs across the map. Unfortunately for it, though, it's going to fly into the range of a Governor, and that's going to be the end of that shocker. Very sad. Going to drop the mass over here in the ocean. Luckily does land in the ocean, which means that the reclaim value will be halved, so that's not going to be as big of a issue, and definitely ended up paying itself off after getting off all those T2 mech kills. I'm sure Yellow Noob wishes he had gotten more, but not realistically going to. Had no way of knowing that that Governor was going to be there, and has another Strat Bomber finishing up in this current year. Insert current year meme here. As the Shocker Strat Bomber shocks the world by moving out towards the enemy base, and he does still have complete air control. There is still no T3 air for the side of Team 1. So Team 2 looking very happy with their early advantage in the air game. And this Shocker going to continue its reign of terror, as it's going to make its way over here once again. Going to be able to kill off another T2 mechs of Balance Slave Noobs, and maybe get a little bit more as it continues out. T3 air should be finishing up relatively soon for the man, the myth, the legend, of course, Balance Slave down here. But that may come just a little bit too late, as right now Snowy is just getting destroyed, as his economy is getting cut down at the knees by the early Strat Bomber harass coming out from Yellow Noob. who is very happy with the situation, maybe even going to be able to get off a hover bomb if he is doing the micro properly. Yep, he does manage the hover bomb. Filthy, filthy play. Kind of just like throw it. It's like the Awasa where you can throw the bomb out the side of the fucking craft. It's so nasty, but at the same time, you've got to respect it because it does take a lot of micro to make it happen. And here we have another strategic bomb coming in, and that is going to bring him up to 18 kills, a rank of veterancy. Another bomb coming in, even going to be able to kill off some T1 AA, which would have helped killing off this bomber. Going to do a turn on the spot to get another bomb off, and it hits a transport. Oh man, the spicy plays. So glad I tracked this strat bomber. Another bomb coming down, taking out another T2 mechs, and right now, Balance Slave Noob is reeling from the damage being put out by Yellow Noob, and he is in a rough spot. You ever seen Oh Brother We're Out Thou? Right now he is sitting there going, damn, we're in a tight spot. And if you haven't, then shame on you. Great movie featuring George Clooney, and of course is just all-time a classic. Oh Brother Where Art Thou? Make sure you check it out. Tactical missile launcher out now for Balance Slave Noob, trying to get its own damage done on the other side of the map. Has one kill and is starting to try and find its way in to kill off a little bit more over here. Unfortunately for Balance Slave Noob, or no, unfortunately for Yellow Noob, there's a lot of high-rated players with Noob in their name. I'm sorry. I mean, two of them have Balance Noob in their, or Balance Slave in their name, so like, cut me a break. But of course, Yellow Noob, his base is going to be under siege by the T2 naval prowess coming out from Yellow Noob, or from Balance Slave Noob, and of course Snowy 801. And that just means that he's already lost his T3 power generator, probably to the governor, before he could get up his TMD. He's built another one so he can continue to produce air units. He still has his strat bomber on the other side of the map, now up to 60 kills and 5 ranks of veterancy. It's completely destroyed the economy. You remember Total Annihilation? Well, Balance Slave Noob is the poster for that game at the moment, as he has had his economy totally annihilated by this airplay coming out from Yellow Noob, and it is just non-stop action-packed brawl going on here as these players continue to punch each other in the face. And this northern side of the map is on fire. The southern side of the map is actually quite tame and chill, despite a huge naval battle starting to occur down here to the south. Southern side of the map not really experiencing the same levels of absolute carnage. Over here, a huge proxy Aeon base of T1 naval factories being used to try and shut down the naval production being built back here in the back, and there's a whole bunch of naval subs. I guess there's, you have terrestrial subs or the sandwiches, thank you very much. And the naval subs are, of course, going to destroy this backwards production for Balance Slave. And over here to the north, a bunch of Navy now gifted over to Balance Slave Noob. His tactical missile launcher really not getting the value maybe he had hoped for it. But now with the combined fleets up here to the north, we may be able to see a bit of a change in the tides. Maybe they can get even more damage done, as it seems like the naval supremacy down here wasn't able to get quite enough. Oh, another missile coming in, very close to going down, and that T3 mech goes down with the last dying shot of that Valiant. And that means that that's going to knock down Yellow Noob's economy just a little bit. As we check on the overall economies for the team, Team 2 up by about 50 mass a second after the absolute ravaging that happened over here on this northwestern island to Balance Slave Noob and Snowy, respectively. And down to the south, it's really not looking all that much better for Team Blue, for Team 1. They're not doing well in the Navy on this side. They have the Navy in the north, but they just got so destroyed by Yellow Noob's air. And in the south, they have some air that can help them out, but they just don't have the general capacity to deal with the Navy. And the sneaky play coming out from Janus Prime, love to see it. His name is of the UEF, but he's making Aeon cheesy plays like he's a natural. And you gotta respect the cheese from the Aeon, as it is oh so delicious and amazing. As over here to the north. Those naval units out from Balanced Slave Noob currently dealing with the units out from Vladislav relatively well. He's just left a few up here to kind of stop this, left a couple of destroyers, and is bringing the rest of his force down a little bit further south to try and get a little bit more economic damage down onto Vladislav and Balanced Noob, or nope, Yellow Noob. Why am I confusing these two? Why do all the pros have noob in their name? It's not funny. I don't get it. I never got that joke, and I probably never will, because somebody's gonna, it's funny because they're good at the game and they call themselves noobs. It's not. That's like somebody walking up to a dog and saying, "That's a cat." It's not a good joke, okay? I'm sorry, but it's just not. Like, it works once, twice, but when everybody uses it, it's just not funny, okay? Willow's yelling at fucking all of the pros for choosing their names the way they do. As, I have a stupid name. Willow? Who the fuck would think that's a cool name? That's a horrible name. The name meta really is not... It's not good. There is no good names. They all suck. As over here to the west, a bunch of ASF shooting down interceptors, as you would expect. Torpedo bombers really starting to make this map look a little bit better for Team 1, though. These torpedo bombers down here on the southern side, they are slowly dying to the frigates, but the key word there is slowly, and they do a lot of damage in a short amount of time. So right now, these torpedo bombers really buying the space that Team 1 needs to get set back up here down here in the south. Whereas in the north, it's just this overwhelming naval victory still over here for Team 1. And Team 2, Yellow Noob is a strong player, and he has a very, very strong economy right now. The strongest, in fact, at 153 mass a second. But that economy doesn't mean anything if you cannot protect those mexes. And he's doing his damnedest. Does have up some shield generators. Is even assisting them to try and make sure that nothing goes horribly wrong on that front. He does have the T3 power to try and help on that front as well. But unfortunately, these shields, it's going to be difficult to keep them up as more and more naval units show up. Does have a few torpedo bombers out from Vladislav, as well as having a Solace that did just go down, but not before taking a Valiant with it. And the naval force is down to just a bunch of T1 units. Frigates aren't going to be too much of a threat, so for now he has bought himself some breathing space, but more T2 units always being produced, and does need to come up with a more permanent solution to the navy of his opposition. As down to the south, a whole bunch of naval units now conglomerating. We have Snowy 801 showing up with the first T3 naval unit I've seen so far. It is, of course, going to be the Neptune class battle cruiser of the UEF. Very, very cheap in comparison to most other T3 units, and a very effective use case at fighting off frigates and destroyers alike. So he's going to be able to move that forward and keep on getting some damage done, and maybe even buy enough space for Team 1 to get some aggressive plays down onto this southern island, which has been relatively unmolested the entire game for Team 2. Yellow Noob still kind of just ecoing up, doesn't have much on the cards other than eco at the moment. He does have air, of course, and I don't think he even has an air advantage, though, at this moment. He has one ASF, and I can already tell you that Balanced Slave has more at 28. So currently behind on the air game after having spent so much on his defense, was mainly static in nature, and maybe he lost a pretty gnarly air fight as well. Did spend a lot of time in enemy territory. We even have some ASF now coming out from Balanced Slave Noob, and right now, even though Team 2 is very ahead economically, Team 1 looking incredibly strong, and they've managed to weather the storm of Yellow Noob's air aggression, and they didn't really lose too much due to Drimacus's naval attack and overall map supremacy options. We even have some odd Percivals kind of just walking around, just like, all right, well, we're here. I couldn't build boats, so I built T3 land instead. And you know what? I respect it. I've won games on Navy maps with Percivals and bricks just by walking them underwater and showing up in the base. So If I can do it, I promise you anybody can. If I can do it, trust me, you can do it. I'm not good at this game. I'm like one step away from somebody who's been lobotomized when it comes to FAF. As up here to the north, Stealth now on the way for Vladislav. And finishing up, he also has Torpedo and T2 on the comm. Do need to be a little bit careful with that, though. We're a little bit late, 24, almost 25 minutes in. Torpedo comms aren't going to be doing you too terribly much. Ras now on the way for Yellow Noob, as his options for winning the game seem to be eco, more eco, and then eco some more. He still has the strongest economy in the game. Would just want to see him transition that into something more tangible, you know, units. Units tend to win games, and I know that Yellow Noob knows this. I just like poking fun at players who are infinitely better than me, because they get to go into the comments and say, well, actually, I won the game anyway, so suck a dick. But, of course, he has some strong opposition in this game. He is the highest rated. No, he's not. In fact, Balance Slave, a little bit higher rated than him, but he is the highest rated on his team, and he is a very, very good player, and you cannot count them out. And when good players get big economies, usually very scary things start to happen, and right now the scary thing he's doing is building an air grid. And air in the hands of a good player can be very scary. His opposition, though, is already ahead up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 air factories versus the paltry 3 of Yellow Noob. As up here to the north, a bit of a naval in battle starting off. I was stuck between battle and engagement and went with battle, apparently. And Vladislav trying to get that commander to do some good work here, but unfortunately he's going to start eating those depth charges coming out from the Exodus class, and those hurt quite a bit. He's going to be able to knock down an Exodus class right now. Might be able to get a rank of veterancy if he does manage to survive through this, but a very dangerous situation as two destroyers are slowly going to chip away at that HP. He's trying to even reclaim one of the destroyers as we speak. He's going to start walking away very soon. Needs to get his own navy involved over here. Otherwise, he's just going to die the second he makes landfall, or maybe even before it, as these destroyers pouring damage into that comm. And we may have our first ejection here at the 26-minute mark. He's down into the red HP, 3,000, 2,000 HP, and falling quickly down to 1,000 HP, and he's maybe, just maybe, going to be able to walk away, but if he comes onto land, he's going to get shot by that giant destroyer cannon, and no, he goes down to Balance Slave Noob's oppressive navy, and that is going to be our first ejection. That base almost assuredly handed over to Yellow Noob, who now has an even stronger economy of 446, and he's just building a Tempest. Oh, some spicy plays starting to come out of the Maroon Aeon. He's double capping mexes and building a Tempest. That is his plan for winning the game, and he's starting to mass produce navy immediately out of those naval factories from Vladislav, and now this is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. Lots of torpedo bombers up here in the north. Yellow Noob just not having the air power currently to fight off the multiple air forces that Team 1 is wielding. And down to the south, it just seems like the battle lines slowly move closer and closer to the base of Janus Prime and Drimachus, as more and more naval units show up over here for Snowy 801, who's trying to bail out his southern allies from the naval fight. Just in general, Balance Slave Noob and Snowy playing a stellar game. Balance Slave also doing quite well. He is the air player, of course, so he's just getting a ton of air production up and is just absolutely dominating the air game for the moment. First Tempest done, another one on the way. He's gonna go with Mass Tempest to try and win the Navy. We'll have to see if that was a good call. Did I just see a T3 artillery? Please tell me I didn't. What the heck was that? Is there a T3 artillery? Nope, that's a battleship. I'm just blind. That's a Summit class battleship firing into the power generators over here of Yellow Noob. And oh no, it's gonna go down, taking out some of the T3 engineers. He's trying to build an apocalypse, but now he doesn't have the power. He needs to recognize what's going on. He needs to recognize that this Summit is causing him massive, massive issues, and he needs to solve them in a prompt and decisive manner if he wants any chance of holding out longer than a couple of minutes here on this eastern side of the map, as his opponents just keep showing up with more and more firepower. Another battleship could be devastating. The Tempest is online. The Tempest will be able to try and shoo away the Summit, but a couple of battleships will beat a Tempest, and not to mention the overwhelming torpedo bomber wave taking down a third of the Tempest's HP with a single pass. The Tempest is great at many things, but of course, dealing with torpedo bombers is a continual weakness of the large circular battleship of the Aeon. More Tempests on the way. Needs to set up some anti-air or get his own Air Force online to deal with this. The Tempest now fighting off a whole bunch of frigates, quite good at doing so. The main cannon, not great for it, but of course, those depth charges that the Tempests pack are, I think, the strongest torpedoes in the game. Maybe only rivaled by the Yasow, but of course, with that overwhelming HP pool that the Tempest has, can be very good. Does manage to take out one of these battle cruisers, another one soon to follow. But unfortunately, with all these torpedo bombers, it's just a matter of time before the Tempests go down. And currently, Snowy looking to get some fatal damage down onto his enemy, Yellow Noob. And we have a comm drop coming out from Balance Slave. He's trying to do some spicy plays over here, and he's gonna be able to do so. I think he has T3, he has RAS. He doesn't even have a gun, just going for the overwhelming play of build Lobos on his opponent's island. And he's going to be able to build a lot of Lobos, and on top of that, he's going to be able to build a lot of factories very quickly. He's sitting on a healthy economy of nearly 300 mass a second. He's going to be able to walk forward and start building up things like SAMs, things like Ravagers, and Triads to try and stop the opposition from getting anything done. Lots of SAMs being thrown up, a couple of Tempests already dead. Unfortunately for Yellow Noob, not quite able to keep those Tempests alive. They get stronger in numbers, much like everything in this game. But a few Tempests can really change the tide of the naval combat. Only naval experimental that has direct fire weaponry, as the Atlantis is the only other naval experimental, and it's relatively underwhelming. At least the only good thing about it is it's cheap, but even then it's not particularly amazing in my opinion. The Tempest is not a good experimental by any stretch of the imagination. Cannot speak today. But it is, of course, I think better than the Atlantis, at least personally. And down here to the south, a large amount of battleships starting to accrue for Drimachus, which means that all those battle cruisers that were produced are going to be a lot less effective. Of course, the battle cruisers can't really die to the battleships if they're not near the battleships, and now they're coming around the southern side of the map, coming around the back of the base of Janus Prime, and Janus just doesn't really have any naval production anymore. All of his naval factories killed off, so now he's just relegated to playing air. And Team 2 looking a little bit desperate in this one. Balance Slave starting to march his way in with a bunch of Lobos, and he of course has that commander. We're going to throw up some Ravagers, which outrange the Cerberus to stop this Cerberus creep that's being attempted by Yellow Noob. Yellow Noob has a nuke, and it's 30% loaded. Do we have an anti-nuke over on the other side? Not seeing one over here for Balance Slave Noob. And not seeing one for Snowy, so that could be a juicy target. Balance Slave himself doesn't have an anti as well, so that nuke could be pivotal. The question is, will it even live long enough, as Miasma's starting to be thrown up and Cerberus starting to go down. Be a very nice moment for these Tempests to come in and start wailing on that commander, but I'm not sure even if they did, it would matter with this overwhelming torpedo force coming out from Balance Slave. Going to be able to target down battleships with this many torpedo bombers. And another Tempest finishes up as Balance Slave trying his damnedest to win both sides of the map all at once with the comm drop and with all of these torpedo bombers. He is really making a case for MVP this game. Although I think Snowy is also making a good case, fighting on both sides of the map pretty much constantly the entire game. As Yellow Noob being pushed back as the commander walks forward, going to be able to build up some more PD of his own if he gets... Oh no, he just lost half of his HP to a combination of PD fire and that Tempest, and I think he may just be dead if he can't dodge the Tempest shots, and no, he can't! And Balance Slave just goes down. The Tempest overwhelming alpha damage just taking him out. How much alpha damage does it have, you may ask? Well, it is a cool 8,000, so just 2 shots able to take down that UEF commander. And now Janus Prime under a huge amount of pressure as a bunch of Percivals walk onto land. He has built enough T1 PD to deal with it though. And the base now gifted over to Balance Slave Noob, who's going to have all of this air production himself. Of course, the comm of Balance Slave going down isn't the hugest issue, as of course Balance Slave Noob not too far behind his ally in rating, only 200 points, not too very different. And now sitting on the strongest economy in the game of 700 mass a second can make some big things happen. Yellow Noob's been knocked down quite a bit after losing all of this territory in the northern side of his base. But he still has the Tempest production line, and he's now getting up a bunch of Cybran Navy. With 3 Tempests on the field, also able to reclaim his own experimentals after he died, leaving him at the highest reclaim of 75,000. And he has got his nuke launcher almost ready to fire. Not seeing an anti-nuke or even a TMD for that matter for the northern side of the map right now for Team 1. And this may be over with that nuke. That nuke could just come in and absolutely destroy either Snowy or Balance Slave Noob, or even just go for the air grid. There's no anti down here either. These are all just TMD. Oh no, it's a bit of a disaster if we're being honest with ourselves. As Team 1, with that nuke in play, with no anti-nuke, is in a hugely dominant position. That nuke is being launched. Where is it going? It's going for the air grid. Say goodbye to the air grid, formerly belonging to Balance Slave, but Balance Slave Noob no longer going to be able to produce those naval or those air-based aggressive units, or the ASF for that matter, as a bunch of broadswords and storks going to be the last thing ever produced by this air production behemoth. That is going to go down in 3, 2, 1. Okay, where's the nuke? There it is. My timing was off. And that's going to be a devastating blow on towards Balance Slave Noob. And Yellow Noob setting himself up for success here in the latter half of the game. He had a bit of a rocky early game, rocky mid game, but now with all of these Salems being produced, being used to shove Balance Slave Noob off of the island, it's gonna be a sad, sad moment indeed now for the Cyan Aeon. He chose the best faction, he chose the best color, but it just seems like he maybe doesn't have the solutions to the problems presented by Team 2, who have really been weathering a storm up here in the north and holding the status quo in the south. That's a lot of broadswords. I mean, that's a lot of T1AA, but that's a lot of broadswords to contend with. They're gonna be going in. Seems as though they're deciding against it now, though. Don't want to lose all these broadswords. Cannot easily replace them. He's going to lose quite a few on the exit here, but does have his own Air Force coming in to try and prevent absolute disaster, but I think it may have already happened. The Air Force that was left behind by Balance Slave by that massive air grid he had built up earlier is still significant. And he still has a little bit of it left over, but gonna need to rebuild his T3 HQ and most likely rebuild that entire grid in the not so distant future. And the nuke has a second nuke on the way, about 30%. Do we have an anti-nuke built up yet for Team 1? No, we don't. At least not currently. Just now finishing, though, for Snowy 801. But the southern side of the map, it just doesn't exist. There is no anti-nuke. Could take out completely Clover Commander and all of his eco. Clover struggling a little bit this game. A bit out of his depth with the level of play being put on show. Are you not tempted by the Tempest? As it fires its massive 8,000 alpha damage shots through the air. And gets a lot of damage done. Every volley we're seeing a destroyer go down. Even seeing some aircraft carriers now out over here. Could see some spicy plays if they are able to build up quite a little force, but mainly going to be used for their anti-air right now. And as you see all of these ASF fly over, the anti-air from these carriers going to be able to do quite a little bit. Command classes, I don't even think they have the best AA, but all of the aircraft carriers having really good AA, going to be dispatching these broadswords and even wasps pretty quickly. A Tempest now on the way, but one has already gone down. And the Mass Tempest out from Yellow Noob looking like it may just win the day, as it's currently sieging the main base, and it can even hit the anti-nuke, which goes down. Oh no, it's a disaster. Yellow Noob is just taking Team 1 to school and showing them the way of the Aeon. Another Tempest is going to finish up now for Balance Slave Noob, but he didn't believe in the Tempest early enough, and now the attacking Tempests out from Yellow Noob going to be able to take it down. And it is just looking desperate for Team 1 now. They're losing the Navy on the northern side. For this entire game, they've been ahead up there. And on the southern side, they're doing better in the Navy. But it's not by no means an outright win at the moment. And with these 3 Tempests, they're not firing towards the enemy Tempest, which seems like a mistake. Take out that huge gun first. Before too long, you might be in some danger, but did manage to get that SMD, and the next nuke is halfway loaded. As long as he's not mass stalling, which he very well might be. No, he's not. Could load relatively quickly. As we have a nuke sub finished up as well. Is that also? I think it's also producing a nuke right now. Yep, it is indeed producing a nuke. I actually found out how to tell is if it's using 40 mass a second, it's producing a nuke. He's gonna have 2 nukes at his disposal very, very soon. Is Tempest out for Balance Slave Noob, starting to get some huge value. It's going to be firing over here. It manages to take out the destroyer, but very close to killing off the opposing Tempest. Unfortunately for it, though, it's on a timer, and that timer is the enemy Tempest's reload rate. Maybe can fire in time. Oh, it's going to submerge, but that's not going to be enough. And that Tempest is going to go down. Another one now on the way, about to finish up. Unfortunately, though, for Team 1, Yellow Noob stopped producing Tempi, but did continue to kill off Atlantis in mass. Atlantis, and that was a Neptune. But he killed off 1, 2 Atlantis. There's a third one about to be done with those Tempests. And with the nuke about to finish up, he has his own anti-nuke now on the way. But there is no anti-nuke for the northern team, or for the northern side of Team 1. And there's still not one down here on the southern side either. I guess there's not really much to defend though. And right now it's feeling like Team 2 have it. Both sides could still win this game, but Team 2 is in much better position to do so. Especially with the double nuke play. First nuke finishes loading. Is it immediately firing? It is indeed. We'll go ahead and get the tracking shot. Oh no, I didn't get the track, did I? I accidentally clicked on Vladislav. Damn it, Vladislav! And that's going for the base of Yellow Noob. And I think it's gonna land. Yeah, that anti-nuke was just built. And Snowy 801 is gonna go down. And I think I said this is going for the base of Yellow Noob. It's coming from the base of Yellow Noob and going for Snowy 801, who is going to be losing his base in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kaboom! And Yellow Noob just has the keys to the kingdom. He's just slingshotting nukes across the map. And it's starting to work out for him quite well. Even Janus Prime managing to recover quite well, building up a huge Omen battle force. And those T3 battleships going to be very useful. Aeon Navy getting a lot of showing here, as it seems that Balance Slave Noob and Snowy 801 both control K. And I would not be surprised if Clover Commander does so as well. And in fact, I'm just going to speed it up, as Clover Commander has no chance in this game. It's a matter of time before the man goes down. It is valiant of him to try, but he has not shown me the wherewithal to be the victor in this match. Thank you all for watching. You've been beautiful. My name is Willow. If you like the channel, please consider subscribing to the Patreon or the channel membership, as it helps out a lot. Thank you to the patrons. Like, subscribe, dislike, comment, whatever you want to do. I'll see you in the next video. This is Willow, signing off.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster.